Welcome to Corner Comics, episode 13. This is your mostly weekly reading club. We get together, we talk about some comics, we share those comics with each other, and how are my friends doing this great Saturday, Emmanuel?
I am doing well, really well. Good to be
And
here.
and Russ?
I am beating back the bushes to expose the hidden truths.
It's a good way to put it, I guess. Uh, why don't you guys let everybody know where they can find you online?
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at Walrus. That's at WALLRUSS. You can also find me on the following websites: blacksuperherofan.com and comiccreatorsofcolor.com. Hope to see you there.
Awesome. You can find me on the ground at Emmanuel. It's complicated. Wait for it. EM_MAN_YOU_EL. Manuel.
All right. So this week we've got 6 comics as usual. Each of us pick 2 issues, share them with each other, and then go through them. I'll go through my 2. Emmanuel, you can go through your 2, and then Russ, you'll do your 2. My first issue of the week is Outer Darkness number 3. This was a book that was actually at the end of, I think, one of the Skybound issues that you picked, Russ. And there was like a little preview. There was like 4. It was like a 4-page preview. And so then I ended up checking this out and really, really liking it. So props to you on influencing my picks.
Well received.
My second issue of the week is Pathfinder, City of Secrets number 1. This is actually what I would say is issue 13 of the series. So the Pathfinder books are an offshoot of the Pathfinder RPG series, and they break up the stories with subtitles, but all the issues are kind of connected. So those are my 2 issues. Emmanuel, what have you got?
All right. So my first issue is DC versus Marvel. It is a 1996 comic. This was way back in the day. So it's an amalgamation, hence Amalgam Comics, of these 2 super companies, Marvel and DC, going head to head, and coming to some sort of resolution within the comics. You'll see. And then my second pick is Black Panther, Volume 7, number 20. This is a recent issue, current issue, and we'll get more into exactly the storyline, but those are my 2 picks.
Okay, my picks are War of the Realms, Journey into Mystery. It's a book that came out last year. There were a series of War of the Realms series. This is the one where the gods are protecting a baby from the evil villains, but it has Story to Murder Dog, so you can't go wrong. My second issue is Taarna, number 1. And you know Taarna if you ever watched the original Heavy Metal animated movie. This is that Taarna and yet another situation. And I just felt like heavy metal should never die.
That's a good way to put it. All right. Go ahead and transition here so everybody can see the covers. Start with the first one, Outer Darkness number 3. I kind of described it a little bit. My sort of tagline for this is supernatural Star Trek with a Saturday morning cartoon art aesthetic to it. So that's sort of my pitch. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on the issue.
Well, for me, it had a lot of levels happening simultaneously. Like this is corporate structure and how things work, right? And the hierarchy of that, that's always working. There's the Star Trek type structure, right? In which we are exploring new worlds, seeking new civilizations, and sending out away teams. And then there's the magic conversation, and this is now also a magic universe, but we're still in space. So there's like it's like it's a mashup, but it's also all three are actually happening. And for me, it's like reading a book in which the tectonic plates keep shifting and not together, right? Like the magic is going like this, and then the corporation is moving like this, and then and so here you are just sort of traveling in that. So for me, it's a bit chaotic.
Yeah.
When I look at the art, um, it is feels like it's sort of an animation style. Like there are parts that seem subdued or not drawn with as much detail as you would find in an animated series. Not that it doesn't look good. It's just that you can tell there's some parts where it's just more shapes than actual details.
Right.
There is a lot here. Uh, because it really depends on which of these tectonic plates pull you. Does the magic pull you? Well, there's a whole story of magic happening here. Does the space thing pull you? Well, there's a whole story of space that's happening here and how things happen in space and how that works. Does the corporate overlords of the future pull you? So for that, I felt like in some ways it was almost too much. Uh, but I also say that there is a lot to follow, and there's a lot of things like if one of these things hook you, it's enough to pull you forward. So it's not just, well, I like this kind of comic. You can like any of these three kinds that I like, or ones that I may not have mentioned, and there's something here for you that is tasty. But in order to put all this together, you have to subdue some things, I feel like, including some of the art and some of the story beats don't get actually fleshed out as much as you might like, but likely will get fleshed out in subsequent issues. I am interested as to why you picked number 3 as opposed to number 1 or some other one. So, but we can get in that. Overall, I liked it, but it feels like, say, if I would have got the graphic novel of it, it would be something really dense because you got there's a lot to follow here and a lot of moving pieces and a lot of characters that have their own arcs that are interesting. So, I saw a little bit of Black Panther type of thing coming on in here. I saw a lot of different things. So that's sort of my take.
Yeah, I will say, sorry, man, before you go. The reason that I picked issue 3 is because I don't feel like issue 1 or 2 really helps you in any way. Like it lays some more groundwork, and there's issue 3 just adds to the questions that you have from 1 and 2, and so I didn't feel like it really benefited. Like 3 had probably the most action out of those issues. And so I figured it was a good place. It was as good a place to start the series than either issue 1 or 2. So
this to me actually could have been issue number 1. It to me it establishes characters in a unique way. The captain who can't quite recognize or remember the ensign or the navigator's name, ask him time and time again, which is unique, kind of like that. I don't know if it's for comedic effect or to establish something else that's going on, but every character here I really like. Even the bad guys who didn't say a word, they were just shooting and got shot. But space itself in this comic book, I think even space itself is a character. I mean that in a way where it doesn't feel like it's too much, not to me at least. I have to kind of go contrary to you, Russ, just my personal opinion. I think like, yeah, the golden rule, don't go against Russ. Um, the comic book itself, I think, really does nicely with issue number 3. I haven't read issue number 1 or 2, but I still feel introduced into the world. I still feel as if this can go somewhere. I don't feel as if I've lost anything in coming in on issue number 3 as well. And the fact that death is not permanent, oh, that's so good to me because it has so many other implications. And I have so many questions, and I'm left wanting more by the end of this issue. So I really enjoyed it. The art didn't really stand out to me as much, but that might be good because it's not really muted. It's just less of a factor. It serves as a bridge between the story and the characters, not necessarily. In one of the comic books we had a couple weeks back, the colors and the art was so fantastic. We spent the majority of the time talking about it. This, you're not going to spend the majority of the time talking about the art. You'll spend time talking about what's going on in the issue, this character, what does that mean, the implications of this and that. So I really, really like this issue. Outer Darkness is definitely going to be one of my go-to reads until it
I,
gets boring.
yeah, I looked at issue number 4,
Hmm.
and it was like, oh, more questions.
Mhm.
Here's some answers, and here's even more questions,
Yeah.
and then a whole nother. I feel like there's like 17 storylines here.
So, as far as I'm aware, there's only 24 issues total. I don't know if
Right.
everything gets resolved by issue 24 though, because I haven't read both arcs, and I don't even know if you get resolution at issue 12. Um, is it 12 issues or 24? I can't remember how many issues it is, but there's 2 graphic novels, so it might just be 12 issues. Now that I'm thinking about it, but yeah, I don't even know if you get resolution at that point after you've read the first 2 graphic novels. So
And I don't know if I could even ascertain what resolution would look like.
yeah,
Like, what is the real goal here? What are we going for? Where are we? Not that's not a complaint.
no,
But usually you've set up, you have the protagonist, you have the antagonist, and then ultimately who they have to beat, and that sort of thing. Here, I don't really know who is the bad guy,
Right.
who's the good guy, who should I be rooting for. It's not really clear. You think then you
Hmm.
start looking at some other issues, and maybe you shouldn't be rooting for them.
yeah.
Right.
That's an interesting thing for me. So I give this a high interesting scale.
Yeah, I like the way that they sort of set up the characters. They're very gray. You don't really have like you were saying. There's no clear like good guy, bad guy. There's a lot of shit going on, and how are these people coping with the stuff that's happening? And I think that was probably the thing that turned me on the most, next to the fact that it was set in space with a pseudo Star Trek feel to it. And then you throw the magic in there, and I'm like, okay, this is almost like Doctor Strange in space, so I'm down, right?
Yeah, I could see this being one of those anthology series, Outer Limits, Twilight Zone, Black Mirror,
Yeah.
any one of those.
All right. Any
Super.
other final thoughts?
Nope, good.
All right. So moving on, my second issue of the week is Pathfinder: City of Secrets #1. The reason that I chose this is because I wanted something entirely different. I can't remember what comic it was that I picked before, but Russ, you had mentioned something like, I expected this to be way more high fantasy than it was. And so I was thinking about that, and also I picked up a subscription to Comixology Unlimited for a month because I wanted to see how many comics I could actually read for $6.
Excellent.
Mm.
And so this is one of those issues. You can pick this up on Unlimited. It's also 89 cents if you want to buy it permanently, which
Nice.
is crazy. I mean, that's the price point I think digital comics should be at. $1, 89 cents, 50 cents. So all of those things were sort of contributing factors. I have read some of the earlier issues, the first, I think, 6 or 12 issue arc that they did, sort of leading up to the point where this group of characters gets to the City of Secrets. And the other reason that I picked this is for the older mage character. His name eludes me right now, but you would think by looking at him that he has been doing this for a really long time, but in fact, he's just made the decision. I think he states like 3 years. He's like 3 years ago is when I started this, or 2 years ago, something like that. So he's just now become an adventurer, and that's kind of an interesting character that I've never really seen in any media, book, comic, movie, TV show, to have a character that's at the twilight of his prime jumping into being an adventurer is kind of cool. So let me know what you guys our thoughts are.
I
And
really liked the art. The art was really great. Now, with this kind of style of comic book, you have to be good at the art. It's fantastic. It's a magical world. You have all these like jewels and trinkets, and you have to paint this semi-medieval world. And the art really serves greatly in that. It's not too bright, it's not too dull, and it shines, for lack of a better word, and pardon the pun. Uh, the characters themselves, I really felt like this was, and I think you mentioned this in the show notes, an intro to a video game. It seemed as if you were going to play Final Fantasy, and these introductions to the characters came up, and you saw their character notes, character traits, abilities. This seemed like a very detailed manual of the characters, which I liked. I didn't know I would like that, but I liked. Initially, upon reading it, when I first saw the cover, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this comic because I'm not really tend I don't really like kind of like that genre, the magic, and it's just not what I go for. But this I really enjoy. It was a nice ride. The dwarf was my favorite, probably because he's just a stereotypical Henri. I just want to like have adventure type character. So I appreciated it. It was a nice comic.
Okay, not to be contrary to Emmanuel. So for me, it's like Matt came to me and said, "Hey, I want to play Pathfinder with you. And I know you're not into the game and you don't know anything about it. So read this comic." I felt like the artwork was the artwork you would find on the box that the game came in.
Yeah.
This is not a negative, but like if there's a Pathfinder game, and I've seen images and things here, I feel like this is the art that would be on it. And if there are cards in this game, this is the art that would be on the cards,
Mhm.
right? Like there's a lot. In fact, I feel like it's 97% character development here, right? There's absolutely no murder in this book. There's almost no conflict outside of heated conversation, in fact, right? And the weapons are not even drawn until the final page, right? So this book, without having knowledge that it has anything to do with the game, to me, wouldn't be enough to keep me going because I don't see. It's a nice adventure. It feels like it's like you were following their adventures, and this is the book where they rest,
Right.
and then the adventures happen in the next book anew. Um, so the art is detailed. All the colors to me are muted. It's so much brown here. There's no bright colors of any kind. For me, even the green where it shows up feels subdued. That's not a dig. That's just, it's it's not vibrant the way I would normally expect a book to be vibrant. That being said, the detail is good here. The dialogue is good here. The interaction, all those things, I feel like it's nicely written and a good introduction to the world and how these characters tend to be set up and think. And I think it's great as a companion piece to the Pathfinder world of the game, if that's someplace you were going to or someplace you were coming from. But as a book on its own, I don't think it stands up well enough without that to say, hey, here's a great book, because you really don't. No one's really excited. No one's really like, oh, I got to do this, right? It's just, oh, they don't listen to me and I'm the leader. They won't let me go with them. They're just talking. You know what I'm saying? It's just sort of a lot of conversation, and it's nicely done, and it flows well. It doesn't feel forced at all, and people tend to act according to the types of characters they appear to be physically or visually. But as a book that I would pick off the shelf and recommend, that say, hey, you need to read this book, I couldn't recommend it for that reason unless you had something else outside of this physical book to go with it.
That's fair. I mean, I think that the whole point of these particular comics is to get you interested into the RPG and the lore and all that. So it's very astute of you to pick that out. Just from reading the comic. But yeah, I mean, these characters do show up. I should have, because I actually have the beginner box, which has like the starting scenario for new players, and these are pre-built characters that you can use. So the elf rogue, the cleric, Ezrin the wizard, these are all characters that you can choose to be to play in that world, right? So, all right. Moving on then, unless anybody has any final thoughts. All right. We'll go with Emmanuel's just because he's on top and next to me.
All right. So, as of right now, February 1st, 2020, there's been a crisis. I'm speaking, of course, of the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths, this merging of worlds. And also, prior to this, the Marvel Cinematic Universe had a convergence where they had all of these characters, the superheroes who had their own show. You have your Captain America, you have your Iron Man, you have all these, and Thor, all these characters who have their own movies now coming together in one. So if you like characters coming together, you would love this comic. It's from Amalgam Comics. It's a very short-lived comic book company per se. What they did was they took Marvel and DC, the two top dogs, and put them together in a comic where they essentially battle. If you ever wonder what would happen, who would win in a race between Quicksilver and the Flash, they don't detail it, but they hint at it. They show panels of it. They show the victor standing above whoever lost, and they pit these two characters against each other perfectly. I think you have the strength of the Hulk versus the strength of Superman. You have the iconic Batman versus the iconic Captain America, and Wonder Woman versus Storm. And there's this storyline of this convergence of these two worlds and what happens when these two worlds, these two top dogs collide. The art says something about the time of today, 1996, but I still really appreciate it. And I giggled and squealed with glee as I found out that there was such thing as Amalgam Comics, because it's what I've dreamed of, seeing these two top dogs who live separate in their own worlds, two separate companies coming together for the fans, for the fandom. And I really appreciated this book, the Amalgam Comics line, as short-lived as it was great. Thoughts?
Okay, I'll go. So I remember when this came out and I bought every issue. Okay. Yes, as a fan, this is something you were dying to see. No doubt. Right. However, the battles. So you have a battle between Green Lantern and Silver Surfer. Shouldn't it take more than 2 pages? I'm just saying, right? That's something that, you can write a whole book on that battle, right? But no, 2 pages and that's it, it's over, right? Then you go Wolverine versus Lobo. And Wolverine wins, seriously? Come on. 2 pages. And then most of the death fighting happens behind the bar that you don't get to see because they only draw the bar, all right? So it was like, I want to see this. You got Elektra versus Catwoman, right? Obviously not necessarily a fight that needs to take that long, but two pages, right? This is not enough fan service. You know what I mean? Superman versus the Hulk. Okay. And maybe the Hulk hits really hard, and maybe now there was Spider-Man versus Superboy, I guess, because they are more popular in the comics. They got a lot more pages. Right? Yeah. They got like 4 or 5. You know what I mean? But in the end, and the Thor versus the Hulk, they got 3 pages, right? These are not fights that you only want 3 pages of. The idea of it, yes, my fanboy was bubbling over. And then what I got was, because I remember the fight between Shazam and Thor. I think that might have been 1 page in the series, right? And I'm like, no, these are Superman level characters. They can hit each other in different galaxies. 2 pages? Are you serious? You think that's doing it justice? It's like, okay, we got 90 pages that we got to cram all these battles in and we got to tell this story, so everybody only gets 2 pages to do their battle. So that kind of let me down. Now, in the Taz of time, we had never seen anything like this, right? The fact that they even got together and did it at all, I am grateful. However, going back and looking at it and wanting to see, I felt like they left me wanting a lot, right? They 2 pages and they're keeping score of who won, but I don't really see how Wolverine won that fight. You know what I mean? They didn't show me visually. They didn't explain. Storm versus Wonder Woman, you kind of figure I was going to go, but it's like, we got to resolve this in 2 pages, dude. We don't really have time. It's like that part of the story is almost phoned in. You know what I mean? Like they say, well, let's get Matt to write it because we don't got to pay him that much, right? And not that Matt couldn't have written better, but just it's like they didn't really. I can't really credit the writers for the overall story. I can credit the writers, but for these battles,
yeah,
I just feel like someone just got together and say they got to fight. We already know who the winner is. Make it so. But if you're a fan, Marvel has done something like this alone without DC, in which they have where they've taken their universe and folded it over so that they've combined heroes from their own universe into one. So Spider-Man and Moon Knight is one character. Iron Man and Doctor Strange is one character, right? I don't know if they call them folds, but it was, and those that universe now still exists inside the Soul Gems of these combined heroes, right? Fantastic Four became Fantastic Two, right? And each of them had 2 sets of powers. And then they had a miniseries where they combined them again. So the Fantastic Four turned into one being who loved itself more than anything else. You know what I mean? Nice. And all of that, So I like the idea of folding it in together. I like the idea of DC and Marvel collaborating. We never going to ever be able to get enough of that. But and there was a time in the fanboy squee, I squeed, but I was always disappointed in how fast the battles went.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember this really fondly because it was the Versus series first, and then it led into the universe where the characters were combined, and you had these new characters that were born out of a combination of DC and Marvel.
Yes.
And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was weird going back to it now because I think about these comics every once in a while, but I never actually go back and read them. And so I kind of agree with Russ. It's weird how much this series sort of suffers from whatever the hell business dealings were happening behind the scenes. Because you do only get 2 pages, and I think that was probably a consequence of, we've done this deal. There's a set number of issues that we're gonna do. You've got to get your shit into this much, these many pages, and that's it. This is all you can do, and I don't know. It's like you gotta please the fans, but you can't make the characters look bad either, so you can't just have, Silver Surfer just completely obliterate Green Lantern with the power cosmic because, well, okay, he's beaten, but he's not down, type of deal. So I think that aspect of it, it's much better in terms of the idea. I still really enjoyed reading it though. Just going through and seeing it, I love this style of art and getting back to that place in my head of when I read this as a kid. It was like, oh my God, yeah, I totally remember this. So
I don't think
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't think we'll ever get a comic that completely satiates our fanboy or girl fanboydom or fandom, because our imaginations are so vast and so, if we see something, we can always see the antonym of it, or, oh, it could have went this way, it could have went that way. I've never once read a comic, as much as I love comic books, never read a comic book that hit every point. That was like, oh, this is great. This is the greatest comic book I've ever read. I could not have thought about something outside of this ever in my 20, 30 lifetimes. I'm always going to imagine something, dare I say, greater, different. It just, I don't think that it exists. I may be wrong. I may, on my deathbed, read the best comic book ever, but from what's in my imagination, what's in my head, I think it beats and tops every comic book every time. But what I do love the the point where they amalgamate, they come together. I didn't know I needed Doomsday and Doctor Doom individual until I saw it. That was amazing. The Spider Boy and Super Spider Man and Superboy,
Right.
that combination, that seems a lot of fanboy service, meaning like it just, all right, we'll take these two characters. Superboy wasn't even really that iconic at the time, but I think because of the age of Spider-Man and they kind of wanted to put him on that level. If anything, it should have been Spider-Man and Superman, but whatever. Just seeing the amalgamation, that was great. The fight first, and then they converge into one. It was lovely. But I agree with you guys. It still didn't hit every point, but it was great for what it was.
Dark Claw is probably.
I don't think there's such thing as, yeah, I actually also like Bruce Wayne, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
That became the Nick Fury of the world with the same anger from about his parents. I don't think because comics are in genres, I don't think there's any one comic that hits all the spots.
Oh yeah.
But I think there are some amazing comics that the spots they hit shine so bright, the other spots that you may feel they missed don't matter. I think those comics exist, and these are comics actually I try to share and present here as much as I can. I there's plenty of things that make me squeak just in the comics we've read over the last few months we've been doing this podcast. I don't believe in perfection, but I do believe in a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And I think there's plenty of them out there. I think this was a good book as far as fan service. The fan service level is higher than the execution.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I could say the same thing about the last Star Wars movie. As well. So, and I don't know if there was somebody that said, "Well, I want someone to write," and you actually mentioned it, Manuel. I want someone to write a book about something that I didn't know I needed, but needed desperately. Like Dr. Doomsday, you said that about. So the amalgam idea, like I said, the entire concept of the amalgam universe was great, right? Those characters coming out of that was great. I just don't feel like the execution was on par. But had this series not existed, we would never got Dr. Doomsday or Dark Claw or Bruce Wayne, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Super Soldier or any of those other things that we did enjoy. But I can't give it a high rate. The idea of it's like Christ on Infinite Earths is so large and so big that the idea of it is appealing, but I can't, I like Secret Wars. I felt like Secret Wars in a lot of ways also phoned it in, but I felt like Secret Wars hit those spots better than this did. My opinion. But good book. I remember it fondly, and everybody should have read the entire series at least once. Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Next issue.
All right. My next issue is Black Panther, The Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda. It is volume 7, issue number 20. I actually have not been reading up on Black Panther, and I picked this issue because the cover really stood out to me. It's a black and red cover with Wakandans fighting, and I just kind of want to know what was up with it. I will break an unspoken rule and read just a bit of the comic book, just to kind of preface this a bit and give the listeners a sense of what the book is sort of about. The Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda. Some time ago, King T'Challa sent a party of Wakandans throughout time distorting throughout a time distorting wormhole where they founded a second Wakanda. That's all I'm reading. So that kind of establishes the fantasy of the world. A lot of stuff happens from there. There's a lot of infighting. His kingdomhood is being challenged. There is a villain that I didn't know existed, the symbiote attached to a beloved villain. So, and then there's also the embodiment of their god, Bast, which was interesting. So there's a lot of elements within this comic book that I really enjoy. And it will entice me to go back and read the 19 issues following up to this and the subsequent issue, the ones coming after. So, you guys' thoughts?
Russ, I know you've been reading this, right? I mean, you've been following
Yes.
along the entire time.
Okay. So my understanding is this. Uh, Black Panther, King of Wakanda, sent out a party or a group of people to go explore something out in deep space.
Mm-hmm.
And those people went into a wormhole and got sent way into the past, but in space. And there was no going back. So they started a new Wakanda that became sort of the empire of Wakanda, like the level of the Kree. But how they got there without their king and everything else, and there ended up being a lot of enslavement, a lot of other things. They became sort of not a good empire. Black Panther went out to investigate the disappearance of his team, ended up becoming part, going through the wormhole also, and sort of losing his memory and becoming a hero of it. Anyway, all that happened, they got back, and now this new empire wants to survive. This new king, he merged with the symbiote, and so that's what he has, sort of symbiote powers. So that, and they had a Bass there too, because Bass exists at all times, because Bass is God. So now they come and threaten Wakanda proper, and Kansas City of Wakanda fight and win against the Empire of Wakanda that has had even longer time to exist. And there's resurrections, and there's all this here. I was drawn to this series by the writer, I'm going to butcher his name, Ta-Nehisi Coates, which is a big writer that I sort of like and has a lot to say sort of in the world of issues that I like. And he wrote this. There's a lot of definitions of what it means to be a brother or being Black and being a member of the world and now being a member of the universe at large, and where do your morals come from and who do you follow, and is it really the strongest survive, and all these things that would happen in sort of a tribalish kind of culture. This continues that story. It also has, who is the main antagonist in the movie? What's his name? Killmonger.
Yeah.
So Killmonger is back here, and apparently he died, and now he's back, and there's a symbiote that's sort of involved in the process. So that character also is here, something to sort of draw you in. I think the art is very good, very detailed, and yet also has the type of hues and colors that you don't normally always see in comics. It's really good there. This story itself doesn't stand out to me compared to all the other books in this series, this particular volume, but it is a good part of this story. I recommend reading all of this. And what I liked about this particular book is apparently Black Panther with Black Avengers Assemble, and they came, and Black X-Men came, and Black whoever that was Black that was chilling with other groups, Black Panther put up the fist, and then everybody came, strolling in, pant walking, the whole nine to do their part in the game. And I like the fact that, because I feel like, I like the fact that he can just call on Black people and they could just leave whatever they're doing. And there's some secret solidarity there that you don't even have to really ask. You just got to let me know you need me. And I like that he has this relationship that he can call on. Like, he probably can call on Captain America, but these other people, they have to, I need you to explain why you need me and all that, right? These brothers and sisters, they just came. Let's roll. Let me get my stuff. Let's roll. And they ready to work. They came ready to play. They didn't come ready, no attitudes as far as we not, break this down for us. I just feel like he just put up the call and they came. And I think that was sort of a noteworthy thing that you don't often see in a lot of comics.
In my mind, before you go, Matt, in my mind, he's gonna forever have this, that's his call sign. He's just gonna scream and have up his fist, and people just flock to him. There's no words, just A-H-H-H-H-H. Awesome.
Yeah, there you go.
Allies at the ready. That's the caption for that panel.
I like that.
Yeah, I really like the art. I'm gonna probably butcher this guy's name too. Daniel Acuna, I think is how it's pronounced. I've seen his work before. I really like it. It has a painterly quality to some of the colors, which is always nice. I'm really fascinated by Panther Venom Panther, whatever you want to call him. That character to me was really interesting. I want to see how he got the symbiote. Did we ever find out?
Oh yeah, but it's in previous books.
Okay.
So like I said, you got to read the series. Everything is explained. If you've read the series up to now, it all makes sense.
Okay. All right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to go back. This is something that I could sit down, maybe not tomorrow, but on a Sunday when we don't have a major sporting event.
Right.
And yeah, sit down and read, 20 issues. I'm fascinated by the whole, it just being established as this empire. Like, how many planets are we talking about? How large is it? Where does it fit in the galaxy? Or in the universe? Is it in a different galaxy? I don't know these. I need answers to these questions. And I think that's good. It means that it's well written and the characters are intriguing enough that, yeah, if you want the questions answered and actually care, it did a good job there. The little girl was kind of fascinating. I don't know, like, what powers does she have? Do we know why she speaks in purple? Because usually when characters have different colored dialogue, it means that they're
That's her god power signature. This
okay.
is Bast. But remember that when these Wakandans went back into the past, Bast existed then. So this is how their god manifested itself at that time for the Wakandans, but for her people.
Okay.
So a god can take many forms, but there's also God's powers can be stolen, God's powers can be misused, and the gods can be affected by their subjects. And they of course have their own machinations. So there's all that story, which is very well explained in the books leading up to this.
Yeah.
But this is the current look of Bast. Because normally you only see her as a panther, as some big, large, looming panther. But there's a reason for this look that is explained in the issues that have come before, and why she acts that way. But gods either got to have special God signature script, or they got to have colors around their words.
Yeah.
Because they're God.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
In one of the panels, when T'Challa is in the dream world, or the I forget exactly what you call it, where he converges or he talks to all of the Black Panthers of the past who have dead and gone, his ancestors. One panel where they're all at a table, it seems as if, and you have Black Panthers from years ago and recent, and one Black Panther in particular stands out to me. He has all white hair. It's kind of short. He has a goatee, but he has not Dolomite, but what is the character I'm trying to look for? Like a leather jacket on, and it just screams 70s retro badass. It's ideal. It is ideal for a Black Panther. If the current Black Panther T'Challa actually looked like that, it would be amazing. I would have him on my poster, like in my room. That was just badass. I just really had to pinpoint that particular issue or panel on that issue. So if you don't get it for any other thing alone that we spoke about, get it for that image.
Get it for the Pimp Black Panther.
Yes, Pimp Black Panther. Amazing.
All right.
All right, I'm done.
Russ, your first issue?
Okay, I chose War of the Realms Journey into Mystery #4. If you're not familiar with War of the Realms, this is when the evil elf king got all of the other realms, the 8 of the 9 realms, to combine and join forces and take over Earth and split it up between. So the frost giants would have a part of the Earth and everyone else, and we had to fight all of them. And so there were a bunch of series. Some of them phoned it in, some of them did not. There's the Punisher one is one of my favorite. The Punisher Kill Crew sort of came after this. Uh, so this is when they're trying to protect a baby, a child that maybe Thor's little sister or something, but it's an infant. And that's a powerful entity. And so these all people have to fight. And this is a ragtag group of heroes that have no business together any other reason other than this, including Miles Morales, including a female Deathlock, I think, and all these weird different, and Balder the Brave. So and Wonder Man. Okay. And my favorite, Glory the Murder Dog. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's for me, it's sort of like a Guardians of the Galaxy movie comic, in that it's a serious thing happening, but everyone is bumbling and being silly, and yet they think they're serious the whole time, right? So I thought, all in all, you get your action. It's sort of a fun book, and crazy coincidence, and Thori the Murder Dog, and that mix seemed to resonate for me. What are your thoughts?
As a single issue, I think it works well. It starts off I was a little confused when I started it off because I didn't follow the War of the Realms whole event that was going on, and so I didn't really. I mean, there's a blurb at the beginning where it kind of explains what you were saying about how 9 of the 10 realms have been obliterated, and the Dark Elf Malekith is working on the 10th. And then it picks up, and they go to Carson City, Nevada, and they're at a convention of henchmen. I was like, okay, all right, I'm done. Like I'm into the book now. Like wasn't expecting this at all. It does have that, like you were saying, like the Guardians of the Galaxy goofiness to it. And so yeah, I mean, I thought that was really cool. Thori is definitely the best character in this book by far. Just the look, the way that he talks, all of that. And yeah, it's just them ending up in a hotel room that's the sort of newlywed suite, and it's the heart-shaped bed, and there's this henchman con going on. It's ridiculous, and I would expect nothing less from you, Russ.
Thank you.
I think hands down, Thori the Murder Dog wins this entire day. The Asgardian way he speaks, but yet it's not purely Asgardian because he's still a dog. He still like speaks in first person. It's awesome. I really want a cartoon version of Thori the Murder Dog. It's just something I need. I really someone needs to get on that quick, fast, and in a hurry. I like the setting, the fact that it was in Vegas. They could have, to me, maybe played a bit more with the teenage hangover shtick type feel. That would have been aces in my book, but it was still really good. I enjoyed the fact that all these henchmen come together and they talk about 401k. They talk about their rights as henchmen. That's awesome. It reminds me kind of the Tick, how like they would have a similar kind of joke with that. So this was great. I really enjoyed the issue. Thori, the Murder Dog, definitely stood out. But even beyond that, the HenchCon, or HenchFest, that was beautiful.
So my only goal was to get you to love Thori like I do. So now that I have done that, I can move on to some other flagged away. But I needed you to know that Thori is what you need.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, Thori, you're okay. Thori is not dead. He said, thank God. And Thori goes, God, dog. I was like, yeah, right. And Thori can talk. Thori can have huge concepts. He's not a dumbass.
No.
You know what I mean? But he knows he's a dog, and he ain't really trying to front. There's an issue. One of the issues where they run into a cat that can talk, and Thori knows not to trust cats. Right, and when the cat really does betray, the story has been trying to tell you that this is not a trustworthy being, and it's just this is what you want to see, right? And so I think Thori should be in every super group. I think you need a Thori everywhere, and thank you for enjoying him and allowing me to bring him to you.
One last Thori moment, if I could. Thori's in a room in this comic book. Thori's in a room. Someone's knocking at the door, and they're saying housekeeping. Remember, granted, this is the hotel in Vegas, and Thori's response is, "And kibble? Is there kibble?" They're like, "Sure." Thori answers the door. The person does not have kibble, and Thori's response is, "Thori shall make you pay for your false kibble promises." Yeah. I was like, yes. Yes, Thori.
Yes, Thori should make them. Yes, this is wrong.
Yeah, I think that was the moment that I really was like, okay, I love this character right now. So this is the same moment. Yeah.
I'm glad you guys liked it.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right, I'll move on to my next book is Taarna, Taarna, #1. I always liked the heavy metal movie as a kid, probably because I had no business watching it, because it was the closest thing I could come to porn that was easy to find and animated, right? Breastises were bouncing and all of those things that I liked. And Taarna, which was sort of the main character at the end who never talked, who sort of saved the day by fighting through time and everything else. But apparently she just shows up when she's needed out in the heavy metal universe. Then this is a story.
Uh-oh. Did we lose Russ?
I think we did.
Oh, man. This is the story. It can't end right there. We gotta...
This is the story. What? Tell me more.
I know. Yeah, I was all into it. Uh-oh.
I didn't know she just appeared when needed. That was interesting.
I didn't know that either. I suppose we should talk a little bit about the issue, and then hopefully Russ will come back and finish that out. Sure. Wow, I didn't know. Yeah, there was a lot of nakedness going on in this issue. That was highly unexpected.
12-year-old me greatly appreciates it. Actually, 34-year-old me greatly appreciates it as well, if I'm completely honest. Yeah, it's...
Silverbush, though. That was a little off-putting.
Really? The carpet matches the drapes. This world is interesting to me in that there's this dystopian, I don't know if it's future, past, whatever, this dystopian planet.
Yeah.
And from what I can gather, there's factions, and they are recruiting individuals for this ongoing war, this ongoing perpetual war. And and correct me if you see anything different. There's this boy and girl, they're hiding now from recruitment.
Yeah.
And they're homeless because they can't register. They can't really be an official citizen, because to be an official citizen, you would then be drafted. So they're in their teenage years, and I will kind of go through it. As they live their life, what is her name called? Taarna. Taarna arrives, and apparently she comes when needed. So apparently this world needs Taarna. And I did pick up that she did not speak, but I didn't know that was her thing. She just doesn't speak at all. I thought she had to.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, and so that was I was kind of curious, like, because there's a few moments where you do, like, a few panels where you expect her to say something and she doesn't.
Right.
I vaguely remember the heavy metal animated movie. I think I've only seen it once, maybe in my entire life, so I don't really know it all that well. What this kind of reminds me of, though, is a little bit like Aeon Flux. I don't know if you've
Hmm.
seen that or.
Yeah.
It kind of has that feel to it for the world.
I can see
It
that.
is, dystopian, sort of police state, esque.
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like the artwork. I don't know that the story grabs me too much. I think partially because she doesn't talk, and it's weird for a silent protagonist in that role.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
She was transported to the world with a sword. I didn't pick up on that until I'm looking at the issues now. And she has the sword tattoo. So she is essentially speaking softly and carrying a big stick.
yeah,
And so this is what grabbed me about the series or the this particular issue. The the fact that this war isn't what it seems to be. The monsters that they're fighting, it's supposedly humans versus these monsters, these beasts. It's revealed at the end, and I hope I'm not spoiling it, but it just, oh, Russ, you're back.
yeah.
Hey,
Hey,
All
all
right.
right.
So this story, that was where you cut off.
Yeah.
oh,
We've
oh
been
wow! You guys, I thought you guys went on and finished it up.
no,
So
we've
this
been
story
trying.
sort of takes place. I don't want to say right after that movie. If you ever watched the first heavy metal movie, not the second one with Julie Strain, this takes place sometime after that movie, and there is a conflict that can only happen in heavy metal proper, in a heavy metal universe. And when it gets really bad, then she comes out of the sky or appears or is called upon with all the knowledge, ability, and skill and nakedness she needs to solve the problem.
Do we
Yes.
know how she's conjured or how she's summoned?
Uh, so you need to go to the heavy metal lexicon to
Mm.
find her true origins. I will leave it to you or your imagination to do so. I don't have the answer.
Sure.
All right. Russ, are you familiar with Aeon Flux at all?
I am.
Okay. So I drew the
I
I
go
drew
ahead.
those parallels a little bit, just with the whole dystopian world and the way that it's sort of drawn and stuff. It feels kind of like that world.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you agree or.
I did. I felt like Eon Flux. uh, I didn't like the art as much as I should have, and how the bending and the flexing didn't really
Okay.
actually feel human to me. I will say I like the Eon Flux actual live action movie
Mm.
with
Charlize Theron.
what's it? Was it with who?
Charlize Theron.
Charlize Theron.
Yes, I will say I enjoyed that, but
Yeah.
that's a whole nother conversation. Eon Flux was another one of those type of shows where it felt like you were watching porn and you were getting away with it,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's like no one's really sweating you over it, and there was weirdness, but it was felt like it was over the top weirdness more than it needed to be, and it was one of those things I don't really understand why any of this is happening, but I like the way it looks as it's moving forward, so I
Mm.
watched it. Whereas I felt heavy metal, I felt drawn back to the old books that I
Okay.
would read, and there's always a dystopian future in heavy metal, and there's always a tyrant somewhere, and there's always someone to overcome, and the world always needs a hero. So I felt that's what made me felt like I feel like there's always a place for heavy metal comics, and this dropped just like Taarna dropped out of the sky into my awareness, and I says, well, let's continue that conversation.
Yeah, you've mentioned heavy metal a couple different times,
Mhm.
especially when we brought up the like anthology. I don't know if we talked about that on an episode, but I was like, the world needs more anthology series, and you're like, well, there's
Yeah.
heavy metal. They're still making that.
Mm.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I
And
I really like the artwork. Um, this the story is I feel like slightly cookie cutter because it is just the whole dystopian thing.
Mhm.
And I'm put off by the fact that she doesn't speak. I'm keep waiting for her in like every panel, like, oh, here's her opportunity to say something, and she never does. I don't how many issues can they sustain that? It's just everybody talking around the character.
Maybe all. Maybe I mean, she doesn't need their speech. You know what I'm saying? Their speech doesn't matter to what she does.
Yeah.
right? Her job is to observe what needs to be fought, gather the tools, and go fight it,
Okay.
right? Nothing else really matters. The fact that she's naked, that's for you to look at, right? There's no, uh, uh, she doesn't need to interact with the world leaders. She's not there to make the world right. She's there to vanquish the greatest evil.
Okay.
And then if humanity going to create another evil, which they will, she will return. So I don't think she needs to. I think that would make the obviously dumbass leadership here valid. And the real issue is this fact that this dumbass leadership is why we have evil in the first place. So I don't think she ever needs to. I think that's how you get your, what is it? Pippi Longstocking has Tommy and Annika. That's how you get your other companion little wannabe heroes that run around here. They do all the exposition. This is the stoic righter of wrongs who has all the ability and skills she needs to take down any enemy and will do so even at the cost of her own life. It is the silent hero. And why would you ever want to get rid of that?
All right.
I'm interested in her vocal
Toss a coin to
capacity.
your Witcher.
In her vocal capacity, because they never really, in the panels where there's obviously screaming, because their faces denote like pain, anguish, excitement, whatever. They don't even have so much as an A-A-H, H-H-H-H. They don't have an ah. So I don't know if she just opens up her mouth and nothing comes out, or if she can scream, she just doesn't speak. That's never addressed. And of course, I have to go to my Wikipedia and find that out. Still, it's interesting. All these questions arise.
You know, you brought up the silent comic before. I don't know why you guys are hung up on the fact that she doesn't talk. Why you can't let her be quiet? Why can't this just be a good book? It obviously is visually great.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you keep asking because that means you actually care and interested in this character, whether you're daunted or not. You want, what is here? What's happening? What's the mystery of this? And you follow along. And isn't that what a good comic is supposed to make you do?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, most definitely. I'm completely interested and entertained. I really want to know, is it by choice? Is it by design? Is it if Daredevil himself was able to see, he just perpetually had a blindfold on. I think that would just add another dimension to his character. It may strip some things away. Just if she had the ability to speak, but just chose not to, that would probably, in my opinion, just add a little bit more depth to her.
Well, there are comics where Daredevil has been granted the ability to see, and he wasn't the man without fear anymore. It's easy to jump off a building if you don't really know how far you're jumping, you know what I mean? Or you don't see you don't get scared of heights if you can't really see heights, right? So the man without fear comes from his ability to see, but when you can see, you worry about losing your sight.
Yeah.
And so it's something about a hero coming in to save anyone and really don't got time to talk to you about it, right? I got stuff I got to do. I'm going to put my life on the line. I'm going to save you. You can't save yourselves. Don't you notice all these heroes that get annoyed with these following along characters that keep talking to them, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's why I said toss a coin to your Witcher, right? The guy keep following around, right? There's always, why are you following around? And no, Hercules will follow you around. Why are you doing this? I'm like, right? So she don't even go to that. She just goes does her business, right? That's what all heroes. When you look at these lone heroes, they are almost made to talk. And it looks like you guys want them to be made to talk. And I'm like, no, you ain't got to talk. Tell your business, homie. Get it done, right? I'm really more mad at these people around you who can't shut up.
All right.
I like it.
All right. And so those are all the issues this week.
Oh yeah, and all the comment and all the conflict that was not in Pathfinder is in here for you.
Yeah, I think I made what was the note that I made in the show notes? Something about I brought the fantasy and Russ said here are the titties.
Because she's incomplete. I mean, come on.
Murder and boobs, murder a dog and naked women. Awesome.
Right? That sounds like a good weekend to barbecue around right there.
Indeed. All right. We are going over an hour, so I think we'll wrap it up. I did have some extra stuff on the show notes. I might bring that up next week. Apparently, some people from Dynamite followed a tweet or two, and coincidentally, Comixology lowered the price of some Dynamite books. So maybe one of the 30 people that watch us had something to do with that. Let's hope.
We have 30 now?
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
All right, and on that note, gentlemen, we're heading out.
I was going to say something inappropriate.